Welcome to Decades of Horror, the classic era.
Possibly the murderer used an electric drill. I say this because the person who did it was quite skilled. Just look at these two orifices. Very nice. Now, can you show me the murder wounds?
This is episode 138, recorded November 6th, 2022.
Gruesome Magazine.
My name is Jeff Mohr. On this podcast, we cover the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly horror films released since the beginning of time through 1969. In each episode, we'll discuss the monsters, spirits, psychos, and villains that have haunted movie-going audiences since the dawn of film history. The dawn of film history.
Did you just have a stroke?
You know, I tried to find pictures. I tried to find pictures of those orifices, but I couldn't find them. You'd think they had a real clear close-up of them, but you think there was a picture online of those? No.
It was the 60s.
All right. So we partner with Play Now Media on 3 of their streaming channels: the Classic Sci-Fi Movie Channel, the Classic Horror Movie Channel, and the Wicked Horror TV Channel. Each of those channels now carries or now streams Decades of Horror, the classic era, and you can get those on most apps, on most sources. So like Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV, online websites, etc. So it's good stuff. I just let stuff scroll through the other day. I finished one movie and it just scrolled right through to The Man with the Atomic Brain. It was quite something. And it had Richard Denning in it. Anyway, so yeah, there's lots of good movies on there. Most of them you can watch it for free. Probably, roughly 80% of the content for free with ads, or you can pay a subscription fee and get the premium content plus the rest of it without ads. So
not just stuff. Movies, serials and old TV shows.
Yeah. Yes'm. I watched 2 seasons, or I watched a season of Boris Karloff's Thriller. I think it's rotated off now, but I know he's looking for season 2 to access. But
I think there's some on there still. I think there's some terror on there still.
Okay, they might still be on there. With me this week are my incredible co-ghosts. Whitney Cayasso is still on a bit of a sabbatical while she takes care of some other commitments, but we have confirmation she will be back next episode, so stay tuned. Yes, we're excited. We miss our Whitney. But also with me this week is Chad Hunt, co-host of Decades of Horror. All of them. How you doing, Chad?
I'm great. Who suggested this movie?
Yeah.
Daphne's pointing at everybody. That's not.
I know.
I know. It's hard to get oriented.
Who picked this? Ralph. Ralph, you're off the team, Ralph. You're off the team after this.
You feel that?
I don't know what Jeff's doing. I don't know what Jeff's doing there. But I'd be offended, Ralph. I don't know.
Also with us is Daphne, who is awesome, stupendous, likable as hell. Daphne, Merry Christmas.
I know. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all right. It's all right.
Let me see if I can. Here, I'll cover that up. There.
Well, you know when our stuff goes up? When my wife decides to put it up, that's when it goes up. So I'm kind of a lame.
I get everything up until December 1st or November 1st, I guess. But anyway, I'm really excited to talk with you guys, and just needed to talk with people like me who like movies like this.
Yes. And
Weirdos.
This is a movie like this. And also with us is our guest host this week, Ralph Miller, although I don't know, I've lost count. Ralph's been on like I don't know, half a dozen times probably.
Feels like 100 times.
I know.
Yeah.
You do one podcast with a guy and you can't get him to shut up.
Yeah. Well, and Ralph has helped us out on a bunch of stuff. I know you were on Hexen.
Yes, excellent.
Yes,
and
Hexen, Incredible Shrinking Man. Yeah, those are the classic ones.
Great movies.
And I think I think one where you guys just interviewed him, talked to him about stuff.
Yeah, there was
right?
we did
my career profile and the Trick or Treat
too. Yeah.
Trick or Treat.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, and I know we've done one since we went on video, but I can't remember.
Oh, that's right. From Beyond.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you worked on that. So, so Ralph is a special effects artist, mostly in the 80s, I think. Some work in the 90s. On some pretty big name movies. So I'll put a link in the blog, and you can go to the episode where we listed all this stuff that he did.
One of my all-time favorite movies ever. Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yay!
Love that movie so much. I just love it.
Yeah,
I'm so glad it's out there.
I think all the people who worked on it. Yeah, it's bigger than it's ever been. It's incredible.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it is.
Hey.
It is
probably because of our podcast.
Yeah,
I stopped. I stopped sending you a notice, and every once in a while I get a notice about some special thing going on somewhere, and I thought, Ralph probably got this all scoped out, so I don't need to tell him.
Yeah, you can get so much merch these days, and they're coming out with there's going to have a video game soon.
Awesome.
Early next year. Killer Clowns video game, and the Kyoto brothers were involved, so it's going to be good.
Excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
I just want some ice cream. I would just like Killer Clowns ice cream.
I'm sure there'll be some ice cream.
Make me happy. Or some popcorn
flavor.
Yeah.
On this podcast, we usually start by giving some basic details. Then we do a few taglines. Take a look at what the posters look like, etc. Give first impressions, and then we just kind of, talk about what we thought was cool, funny, despicable, whatever. So up this week is this movie is actually chosen by Ralph, the Brainiac. Oh wait, that's the wrong.
That's the Superman villain, Brainiac. That's different.
Which, by the way, this was a cover done by Kurt Swan and Stan Kay.
Yep.
10 cents. That must have been an old one.
Yeah. I was trying to find an old one that looked like the Brainiac I remember. This Brainiac from Mexico, 1962. Yes. The director was Chano Urita. Written by Federico Curiel, Adolfo Lopez Portillo, Antonio Orellana. I'm sorry, Antonio. The cast includes Abel Salazar, Rosa Maria Gallardo, Ruben Rojo, Luis Aragon, David Silva, also Federico Curiel, writer and actor, German Robles, Roxana Bellini, Rene Cardona, and Magda Urvitsu.
Good job, Chef.
In Mexico City. Well, thank you. I'm sure I butchered them. Anybody? But anyway, filmed in Mexico City from February 8th to the 21st. So what, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
It was released in Mexico on November 9th, 1962, and in the U.S. in 1963. We can't really pin it down any better than that. And the synopsis. This is, I had to really trim the synopsis because every synopsis I found was really, really long and got into all these details. So in 1661 Mexico, the Baron Vitellius is sentenced to be burned alive by the Holy Inquisition of Mexico. As he dies, the Baron swears vengeance against the descendants of the Inquisitors. 300 years later, he returns as a horrible brain-eating monster to enact his vengeance. Yep.
Sure does.
Yep. And the original title was El Barón del Terror.
The Baron of Terror.
Which we will get into here in a little bit. Okay, so now there's not a lot of taglines here, but it is time for taglines with Chad.
The old Warner Brothers Looney Tunes. Whenever they had machinery going on the cartoon,
I had a lot of Looney Tunes stuff. So let's get you specifically looking like you're important here.
Why change now?
Fire away with those taglines.
Okay, the first tagline in this hyper sensationalized segment of the show is the most bizarre horror movie ever.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you now?
A second ever, yeah. Just
all right. Okay, in the second one, I have no idea if they're talking about the movie, the Baron's plans. I don't know. But anyway, it's the most fiendish idea ever conceived by the human brain.
Fiendish.
Yep.
And conception. Well,
ever conceived by the human brain.
I
don't know if they're talking about the movie itself or the Baron's. I don't know. I have no idea. So I shouldn't try to elaborate.
It's left to the viewer's interpretation.
Because I had no idea what was going on.
So that's been Taglines with Chad. Now we'll move on to First Impressions. Chad is such a good sport.
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Yeah. Good noive. So Ralph, you picked this. Let's go to you with First Impressions. When did you first see this, and why ever did you pick this for?
Why would I do this to nice people? Well, I think I probably saw it maybe 5 years ago or something for the first time online. I probably saw it on YouTube, but now you can see it on Tubi. And anyway, I think I had seen pictures of it long before I saw the movie, and I was intrigued. It's like, what is that weird thing? You know, it's like something you would have seen in the pages of Famous Monsters. You asked for it, and it would show a picture of some obscure European or Mexican movie, and you'd be like, what the hell is that? I must see it someday. And this is one of those things that eventually I got to see, and I was like, wow, that's a crazy movie there. And I thought we could have fun with this one.
It is. I totally agree. So I'm dying to hear what Daphne thinks of the Brainiac.
The light's blinding me from behind.
I know. The holiday cheer. Let me just tone it down. Well, I had seen it before, but as a riff track, the riff track cover.
Oh, okay.
And I go back and forth with MST3K and riff tracks because sometimes it feels a little snarky, but other times, like I've seen them live and everything, I like them too. So I saw it with the riff tracks, and there was I rewatched part of it, and they do have a really funny reference to Eric Roberts, which made me laugh out loud. But other than that, I did appreciate watching this for the first time without the track. And it was fun and ridiculous, and I love the atmosphere. And I loved the black and white. It was a lot of fun watching it in black and white, and the mid-century furniture and clothes and stuff. But it was pretty wacky. I think the only time I got really scared was, well, I don't even know if I want to say scared, but the worst part for me was him eating the brains and that they were unrefrigerated. For some reason, I had a really hard time that those are organs. They should be refrigerated.
Unsanitary brains. I hate that.
So it's like, oh my God, they're not refrigerated. They've been out in the open. So
all of them in different stages of decay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. The orifices looked really cool. And yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
Okay. Thank you. Chad, how about you? I'm sure you've seen this before, right?
I have not seen it. I was aware of it for a long time. And like I told you guys earlier, when I first saw posters and stuff for this, his little hairy hands looked like little hairy butts on the poster. And I was going, why are there butts on this poster? I was a little kid.
That's a legitimate question.
So I was confused by that, and I didn't want to try and figure that out at my age at that time. So I went along my merry way and never watched it until now. And this is the weirdest. This is the weirdest movie I've ever seen.
Hey, that's saying something from you, Chad.
Yeah, it is. The creature looks like Gene Simmons on the cover of the Rock and Roll Over Kiss album. You got these two cops that look like they're just straight out of a Little Rascals episode, who come in and save the day at the last minute, and with the craziest weapon against this thing. They just show up with flamethrowers. They just show up, and we got you now. We've been chasing you the whole movie. Now we're gonna burn you. The Pope hat. I mean, it was all just incredibly weird, weird. But it is a fun movie, and I did enjoy watching it. It's very fun. And I'm only saying that because Ralph's here.
Whoops. Sorry. I had seen this before, and I kept expecting Chad to pick it, because when we first started this podcast, we made a list, and I swear he put Brainiac on there somewhere.
Maybe I did,
but we never did get around to it. So I'm glad Ralph picked it, because this is one of those movies. It's kind of like the Santo and Blue Demon movies, where the funniest part of it is the dubbing and the
oh my God,
the translations. I mean, wow, just wow. I usually, a lot of these movies don't have very many quotes listed anywhere online, so I watch it and I think, I stop it and type something down, or record it as a possible quote. And this one was like the whole script. Everything anybody said was just insane, inane, off kilter. Just, it was awesome. And the effects. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Get a better look at it. But the
damn right
thing he turns into. Oh Lord. He turns into, and I don't know. Chad's got it. Well, let's take a look at the posters here.
Let's just get on with it.
So that's kind of the thing that I see the most. I don't know about y'all, but I think it's a DVD cover or something for the US. So that's a US. Anything that calls it the Brainiac. And I see his hand peeking in there on the right. We'll get a better shot of that now.
Yeah, well, the one at the top looks like a roasted Thanksgiving turkey. And the other hand looks like a little baby's hairy butt. But you can't see the whole thing.
A baby's hairy butt.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know.
He has a very
baby butt.
Or hairy set of pants. I don't know.
He's got a very talented tongue, and
I know it's triple forked here.
Yeah,
this picture.
One for each neck.
Here's another one, and where we get the most bizarre movie.
Oh, there's that hairy butt.
There's your hairy pants.
Okay.
I just realized there's a typo in the tagline. Horror move ever.
Oh.
It is the most bizarre horror move I've ever seen.
And there's the hand. Yes, there is the hand.
Talk to the hand.
Oh, we'll talk about the effects later. And now we get to what I assume is a Mexican poster, El Barón.
Ah, nice.
Once you see hairy pants, that's all you see now.
Yeah.
Can't not see it now.
Yeah.
Those are pretty much the same. Now this one actually uses a different drawing of the creature.
Huh.
That looks much better than the mask.
Yeah, that's a nice. That's a good.
That would have been a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the two guys with the flamethrower.
Got a set of lips on.
Yeah, I noticed. After 300 years, all these people looked exactly like their ancestors. That was interesting. Chain of chromosomes there. All right. Well, that's the posters. And this actually is kind of my favorite one just because it's different. All the other ones are pretty much the same thing. And
yeah, the creature in the other one looks like he's on his deathbed.
Well, it looks like his left half of his brain is about ready to explode or something.
One more brain.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not the most flattering picture of the victim.
It's probably
I'm sure he was upset. He was like, they showed my bad side.
Exactly.
Yes.
Need a better photographer. Make love to the camera. You're beautiful.
All right. So I don't know. How do we want to do this? Want to just talk about stuff in general or scenes, and I can pop up stuff that's related, or should we kind of work through it?
Oh, I thought we were almost done.
No, we may never finish this one. We have to dissect every line. Well, okay, here's a couple things I found interesting. So he starts off, he gets the Inquisition, and this guy starts reading off his sentence from the scroll that's like 700 words long. He never scrolls at all.
No,
it's just incredibly long thing. He just goes on and on forever.
And the lettering is this tall.
Yeah,
on the page, and there's like only 5 lines, and he must have read like a 2-page dissertation.
And there was illustrations and everything.
Yeah, the trials probably took a long time in those days because some scribe had to paint all those little illuminated letters and things.
I was thinking, there was a couple scenes in the script, in the shooting script there to shoot, but at some point they just went, "I'll screw it, we'll just read it." They put it through the trial of torment.
I loved the faces he made when they were reading the different accusations.
That was precious, man. It's like, it's talking about him like witchcraft and necromancy and seducing maidens. And, like, he's got this great big smirk on his face. Yeah, that was me. I did that.
Well, the way he reads it too is seducing married women.
Mm-hmm. And then he went
and maidens. There's a
pause.
And he looked like, "Don't forget the maidens."
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, the maidens.
Oh my gosh.
Now I also thought it was weird when they sentenced him to the burning out in a field. It said, now that bottom picture there, the Inquisition, they brought like their desk out there and have a curtain or drapes or something behind them, but they're outside. Those are the trees there to the left. This is just the weirdest.
I don't know.
It's ceremony, I guess. It
was probably just it was probably just exit stage left in the set for the trial. You know,
we're outside even.
I always love in these ones, like when there's a witch trial or something like this, where it's like, well, if you do scream out in pain, or if there's any blood, then you're guilty.
Yeah,
you know? It's like, oh, okay. I like
keep your mouth shut, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, if you don't drown, you're not a witch. If you drown,
exactly.
then
exactly.
Okay. Wait,
it didn't look like it hurt.
You are a witch.
Yeah.
If you drown, you're not a witch. And
right.
That's great. Mission accomplished. Yeah.
Either way, one thing it hurt him very much.
One thing I will say is that this is the Mexican Inquisition. This is not the Spanish Inquisition. Yes. And I didn't realize that there was a Mexican Inquisition. I knew that the people who came from Spain were just horrible in their treatment of the indigenous people. But I didn't realize that the Spanish Inquisition also carried over into Mexico, which at this time was called New Spain and was under Spain's leadership. So it's an educational movie, folks.
But if
really, because I didn't
know that. Yeah, I guess if it's under Spain's leadership, wouldn't it actually be the Spanish Inquisition then? That's what I thought it was.
Okay, I guess, I guess they wouldn't have called it the Mexican Inquisition because they weren't Mexico at the time. They were New Spain. So you could call, but I mean, when I think of the Spanish Inquisition, I think of a European activity. But yeah, sure, it crossed the Atlantic.
And since all we got was the dubbing, we can't tell if maybe maybe we should mention this too. The producers were the lead actor, Abel Salazar, and K. Gordon Murray, who's notorious for putting out these Santo movies and Mexican horror movies of the 60s.
And fairy tales and Santa Claus.
With really bad dubbing and translation.
Yes. So yeah, we can thank him for that.
So that may be where that's coming from. But at any rate.
And during that Inquisition, his friend Marcus stood up for him and says, no, actually, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, because you testified for your pal here, you get 200 lashes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just like, wow, that's what you get for being a pal.
Right. Or providing testimony in defense of a
Okay, so part of the sentence was, and therefore he was conducted to the torture chamber, and his arms were thrust behind his back. The rope was then tightened by being twisted 30 times in a row. But the accused merely laughed with disdain at these acts of justice. Because of his bold defiance, he was then laid upon the rack, and with his arms and legs almost torn from his body, he continued to make jest of our holy authority. They just, and at some point they go, because he said, yeah, keep doing it, I don't care, then they quit. They made the decision to just screw the torture, we'll just kill him, I guess.
They were not getting the reaction they wanted.
No.
They were not. They were not.
So they put the Pope's robes and hat on him and burned him at the stake.
Well,
right.
What was he apparently, he was, let's see here. He was, for heresy and the instigation of heresy, for practicing dogmatism, for having used witchcraft, superstitions, and conjurations for depraved and dishonest ends, for having employed the art of necromancy, invoking the dead, and trying to foretell the future through the use of corpses, for having seduced married women and maidens. That was all the stuff he was getting nailed for. But so apparently some of that involved making the ball and chains disappear, right? I guess.
And put them on the other guys on the cards there.
That was funny.
When they're burning him, they said if you scream in pain or do anything like that, that means you're a witch. He was awful calm for being burned.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like,
yeah,
I'll be back in 300 years.
And they made him wear
No,
I don't think he did.
Well, what I liked was the editing and the shot sequence, because he's standing up there and they have him. Eventually, he's tied to this X-shaped cross thing. They start to fire up, and this is in sequence. He's standing up there. They start to fire. Then it shows him totally and completely enveloped in flames. And then we get a shot of him. Yeah, he's not really burning yet. And he issues forth this curse. I'm like, oh my God. And it seemed to me like when there was one shot where he was really in fire, it looked like miniatures.
That's what I was guessing. It kind of looked to me like the fire was a foreground miniature. So they maybe didn't have to make as big a fire. That's my guess. But I don't know.
All they had to do was cross two sticks and put some little people in. Anyway.
Get a stuntman.
It wasn't elaborate buildings or anything. I just thought that whole sequence and that whole scene was just crazy.
Hilarious.
And I like that he had to wear the costume of shame, and they dressed him up like a pope or something.
Yeah.
The robes of shame. Yes.
We will humiliate him. Make him dress like a pope.
Dressed in the clothing of shame, bearing symbols of fire. Symbols of fire.
And I liked the folks watching and gossiping and kind of giggling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Watching.
They say that, you know what that was? Because they say he will undergo personal debasement before the people. Apparently that was
the debasement.
The women gossiping about it.
I heard his feet stink when he takes his shoes off. That's what I heard too.
Don't say that too loud. They might burn you too. So, okay. So then we literally flash forward 300 years.
300 years.
And
then we get some special effects.
He looks up while he's being burned and sees this comet and says something about when this comet, he somehow or another knows it's coming back in 300 years. I guess because he's a necromancer or something. And there's the comet
punish
on the
descendants of these people.
Yeah.
The thing I got, if you had a comet that looked that bad, why would you keep going back to it, shot after shot after shot?
Well, there's the one shot where it looks like a sparkler poked through, through a screen or something.
I feel like that music you played during the tagline should have been played at that comet flying.
So he shows up. There's the comet, I guess. That was the comet. At first, I was trying to figure out what the hell's going on. That must have been the crash. The comet crashed into Earth. Is that the?
Yeah, that's something that I mean,
misshapen rock.
You know, it looks kind of like a big paper mache construction with wood pieces inside or something. It doesn't look anything like what I would expect it to look like. And in fact, a comet is really more of a dirty snowball. It's an asteroid or a meteor, well, an asteroid that is rock or rock and metal, like it might have iron and nickel, might be magnetic. If you've ever seen a meteorite in a museum, you know, it's this big chunk of metal or something. But this thing, it looks odd. It has a flat bottom, and it just comes straight down, perpendicular to the Earth, nice and slow, you know, from a cable above. I didn't know that it worked that way. You know, that's not what I would expect to see when a comet smashes into the Earth, but that's how it worked.
And then the weird shape in the middle picture just kind of dissolves, and there stands the Brainiac, I guess. Although, Brainiac. You know, another one of those, nobody ever calls him anything. We have no name for this creature. It's just a weird name. I just don't understand American cinema when they change foreign. I mean, Baron of Terror would have been a great title.
Baron of Terror.
But no, the Brainiac. Nobody will watch the Baron of Terror. Oh. Anyway, and the tongue.
Not to mention his power of being able to steal your clothes.
Yes. Yes. The first guy, yeah, he's in his burnt up robe still, apparently. And then first guy he kills, his suit magically goes on him, and not only does it put clothes on, it tailors it perfectly.
Yes.
Well, at least his victim got to keep his underpants on.
That's true. And his shirt was neatly tucked in to the underpants.
Yeah.
But spoilers, when he is killed at the end, he goes back to his original clothes.
He's killed at the end.
The ways of magic are strange.
This thing is like, this is just crazy. So what you saw this? Yeah. So I was sort of assuming this face. There's some other. I have some other shots, but the face of this thing was almost had to be like paper mache or something. It just didn't seem. I don't know.
Well, it was pulsing. It was pulsing.
Yeah, you would think it would be.
Oh no, it had to be rubber. You're right.
From the texture, but it had to be rubber because it was pulsing.
Yeah.
Baron, your head is throbbing. Do you have a headache? You're just happy to see me.
Speaking of throbbing, yes, this is.
Oh yes,
before he kills the woman out.
Oh boy!
And for that to actually work, that means that he wasn't actually able to breathe at that time. You know, the mask must have been a complete seal, so he was just kind of puffing and blowing on it.
That's what I was wondering. Was it intentional, or is the poor person just desperately trying to
suffocated?
Look at that.
Can't do very long takes, or he dies. You know.
Exactly.
I've seen guys like that in the bathroom at Wendy's.
Well, I noticed. You know, I kept wanting to see a closer. I wanted to see a closer shot of those gloves because I just couldn't. I mean, I know they're not supposed to be gloves, but and here's this sort of this
transformation.
Yum yum, eat them up.
That's after he hypnotized them, right? And then lastly, you got to get the true finger action.
Yeah, what's that all about? Look at that poor little pair of pants.
Poor little pair of pants.
Poor little pair of pants.
Yeah, the hands don't look that useful.
Poor little pair of pants.
So what is that supposed to be, do you think?
I'm stopping at pants.
Okay, so then we have, he's also like really into tongue action here.
Yeah.
And the impression you get, or I got, is that the tongue makes the holes.
Yeah.
Is what?
Two holes.
Okay.
Two orifices.
And so then his then he attaches these and they suck the brains out. Is that?
Oh, you think the hands are doing this sucking?
Oh.
Well, I don't know.
I thought it was the tongue.
Either way, it's still a whole brain. How do you get a whole brain out of those tiny?
Yeah, whole. He's got him in that bowl.
Yeah.
Here's his collection of brains.
Yeah.
Those look like real brains too, probably cow.
They
brains.
magically reconstitute.
Yeah. No refrigeration needed.
It seems like he sucks the brains out of them, and then wouldn't they actually be inside of his body at that point?
Yeah.
Does he need to somehow have them disappear and reappear as reconstituted brains for later consumption? I'm so confused.
Science is strange. Or magic is strange.
Nothing is.
I have to hurry and get these home in my magic.
It seems like magic until we fully understand it.
He grabs people, puts his head down on their neck, and then kind of mushes his hands in there too. And then you can see that those things are just hollow rubber. They just collapse when he pushes them against something. Anyway, so yeah, he's just
Oh dear.
You know, there's probably I read about guys like this on social media. The way they treat women. Mm-hmm. These are probably like first dates on Tinder or something. Anyway, it's just
but he does seem to dispatch his victims really fast, considering that he's sucking their brains out. You know, it's kind of the same situation you have with vampires. Like you watch Bela Lugosi Dracula, and he doesn't even have fangs, and yet he's able to drain them of blood very quickly.
Without even
there's some crazy magic going on here. Yeah, he doesn't even have to wipe his mouth or anything.
Well, and the way he gets them,
no, that's apparently.
I wish I'd have had a gif of this, but
Mother,
when he's in his human form, he does this thing where lights flash on his eyes, you know, and then the men get froze, like with their eyes popping out, and the women fall in love with him, I guess.
I'd rather it be that way if it was me.
Going on. So the guy on the bottom shot, he ends up being having to jump into his foundry furnace.
Yeah, that's harsh.
Those things are hot.
and like I said before, the guy at the top looks like he just walked in on his parents.
I know.
In the middle of the night.
And that's his daughter with him. So both those guys are descendants of the Inquisitors. And then the daughter, well, she's a descendant too.
We never did get a... Go ahead, Ralph. I'm sorry.
Oh, he invited all these descendants of his Inquisitor tormentors to this party, and they probably never met him before or anything, but everybody's like, hey, let's go to this party with this guy that I've never seen before. Let's go to his castle and check this out. And then every time that he looks at them, it dissolves into their ancestor. And like you were saying, the funny thing is that the men look exactly like their ancestor from 300 years before. But and I saw that pattern. I thought, well, that's interesting. And then with a couple of women, it shows them turning into their ancestors who were like bearded men, and it's like, okay, that breaks the pattern there. That's not the same. Those women do not look like their male ancestors.
It's just,
but it's also interesting that after 300 years, these ancestors would have but a single descendant. Usually, a family tree branches a little bit.
Well, it skips a generation.
One generation?
Just one single descendant.
Well,
I like too how he's talking to the professor here and his daughter, and he's saying, she says something about his descendants, and then he goes, I have no descendants, for I am the Baron, blah, blah, blah. I was the one who, and I'm like, boy, you're kind of giving it all away, but I guess you can tell him whatever you want if you're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And they don't do anything about it anyway, but God, he is so weird. Look at the profile in that bottom picture. That's just
the shadow nose. So we didn't really get an explanation as to why he's in this form, or why he eats brains, or why it's just
Is this his actual form, or is this just the form he used for brain sucking?
Did he transform into this to stay alive for 300 years?
You see, you're asking questions now. We're going to hear from Barry Chandler with the explanation of how it goes.
Did he always have this ability to travel on a comet? And
exactly.
Yes.
I'm more interested in that story. How he caught the comet.
Well, if you
want to see the prequel,
if you can remove balls and chains and change clothes without moving, I guess you could write a comet. So anyway,
he's a sorcerer.
And then
he had a brand new pair of Nikes on.
He hypnotizes the men, and the women, it's just sort of very quickly after this, she realizes what's going on and screams, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
My God, I really wish I had a picture of those orifices because they look like
they look like octopus.
Yeah,
like an octopus.
Well, I was thinking they look like machined holes, you know, with a little embossment around them, you know? Like a washer welded on.
Well, who knows what that tongue is made out of?
I don't know. Tongue.
Well, people are just going to have to watch it for themselves or just use their imaginations what these orifices look like.
Make up your own minds, folks.
But they're so perfectly drilled. Obviously, an expert did it with a drill. What does the cops say? I should have had a picture of the cops because the one cop who was also the co-writer was like the comic relief of the whole thing. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. They called him Benny. Benny.
Yeah. Well, that was the American thing. I don't know what he was called.
But Bernardo.
Like Ronaldo was Ronnie and Victoria was Vicky. I don't know. And that professor, when they're trying to find the comet and the comet's disappeared because the comet landed and discharged the Baron, I guess. He's going through these telegrams from all over the world and he just goes, nothing, nothing, nothing. Nothing. Just like
that was one of those several scenes where they kind of milk it. It seems like it's going a little bit long. They just keep at it.
And then they do it again, like the next day. Anything yet?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, all the same. Still nothing.
So that is these scientists from all around the world did not report seeing any kind of a comet on the same night that Ronaldo, Victoria, and Professor Milan saw the comet.
It's magic.
I guess.
It's magic.
Yeah. And,
there were a lot of spots like that.
And they were disappointed that nobody else said they saw the comet. But then they open up the invitation from the Baron and they're like, oh, whoa, we got invited to a party. We're gonna have a good time after all.
Yeah. Who cares about this? Let's go to the party. Free food.
And turn your frown upside down.
You, but it seemed to me like the Baron wasn't really that engaging when he invited when people saw him at the party. If he said anything at all, it's it's like hello or something. It's like, well, thanks for inviting me. You're quite a conversationalist, Mr. Baron.
Yeah,
that says it all.
I also wonder where his assistant came from. He just had this house and an assistant, and
where'd he get this nice castle?
The butler, where'd he get this nice castle?
He hypnotized the blacksmith.
Yeah, and then he has this butler who, at the end, when they come to kind of confront him and run away, the butler kind of comes in and is the muscle, and I'm just like, okay, all right, let's go.
Except at the end when they knocked him out of the way with the flamethrower. Get out of here, you mug.
So we have to take a look at this one. This was the I don't know if that was that the professor and the daughter, because
that was the professor and his wife from the Foundry.
From the Foundry?
Oh, from the Foundry, yeah.
Yeah, there was Indelicio and his daughter at the Foundry, because he was saying, I am going to introduce you to an amazing alloy that nobody's ever seen in the whole world, and it's going to make you lots of money. And so he was like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more.
Oh, that's actually that's Meneses.
Oh,
Meneses.
Oh, Meneses. Okay.
That's
the one who walked into the furnace. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a pretty good makeup effect there for the time.
I got confused because he did burn the home of the guy who studied the Inquisition. Had got information from that guy, and then he burned the home.
Yeah,
but this is from another burning event.
I don't know. Could have been the first.
There's this thing about fire that goes throughout this movie. Fire happening.
Well, So, and then the bottom picture is one of the descendants, and she just got married to
right.
One will die by fire, one will die on his head by water.
Yeah.
Yeah, Francisco and Anna.
Yes, her new husband is in the bathroom, and so when the Baron just appears in her room, she's understandably just a little freaked out.
Well, the whole thing from this angle looks like, hey, honey, look what I can do. And she's like, he's insufferable.
Well, when they first,
I would have to put up with.
Yeah.
I thought he was hanging by his legs at first, but they show that shot, like looking down into the bathtub, and he looks everything like somebody who's standing on his head. His arms are out, like holding himself up.
Maybe that's what he hypnotized him to do.
Yeah, stand on his head till he drowned, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Stand on your head until your hat floats.
So yeah, he's gone, and then you know, that's actually this shot. This is literally the shot in here. That's like the one spot in the movie where I thought, oh, that's kind of cool.
Right?
That's
artistic there.
It's Nosferatu-ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
that nose, you know, it's like a refugee from the Muppets or something.
Yeah, I thought that the creature design reminded me somewhat of a devil. You know, the long nose, the big ears that are pointed, you know, big long chin. But instead of having horns, it had two big lumpy things on its head. Yeah. And very hairy and disgusting.
Especially his pants.
Very So here's another shot of that hairy, disgusting thing with it.
There we go. That's my boy. Look at him.
Licking the brains from his fingers.
Yeah. They don't bother making it. I guess he does make his fingers pulse somehow, but they don't really. The tongue just sticks out, and then he just pushes it into stuff. It doesn't seem like it's articulated in any way. I mean,
no, I mean they show it coming out. That's about as much action as you get out of it. But it's so bizarre. It's like it looks like a snake's tongue, and a snake's tongue would not in any way be capable of drilling holes into your skull. It's this floppy thing. How does that work? I don't know. It's magic. It's magic. Don't you know? If you
Ralph orifices.
Orifices. Seriously, if you ask too many questions, your brain is going to get sucked out of your head with this movie.
Exactly.
Like that kind of movie.
Well, okay, here's a question.
Yes.
Did you hear where they why and when did they decide they were taking flamethrowers out there?
I did not hear why.
Well,
it just seemed to me like they just showed up with flamethrowers.
Well, I remember that they were going to go to their headquarters before going to the Barrens.
Okay.
So there's that much explanation. So at least there's an understanding that they didn't happen to have it in their trunk all along, that they went to their headquarters for some reason. And the reason, of course, is to pick up their flamethrowers.
And they weren't particularly effective flamethrowers.
Do you think that they kind of put it together? Because I think that didn't they go down to the I don't know what the name of the building is called, where the not graves, but where the is it sarcophagus? I don't know what it was. The Mohr, yeah,
they did.
Did you think he put it together down there? What was going on, and that's how somehow he could.
Well, I think
figured out that the flames would kill him. I mean, he wasn't a big talker, the police officer.
No, and it didn't, I mean, flames didn't kill him before.
That's a good point. That's
because he didn't have his Pope hat on this time.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and they also, the detectives also visited the Baron's castle and snooped around a little bit. And one of them wrote down something that was on a little notebook that was sitting out there, but we don't know what he wrote down.
Right.
It's hard to figure out how they piece things together.
Yeah.
That's why Benny's down at the bottom like, why didn't we do this in the first place, boss?
Or maybe it's just their go-to weapon. I don't know. Flamethrower.
Whenever they encounter something a little bit out of the box,
Well,
they got to go for the flamethrowers.
If you looked at the movies of the time, they did have a lot of problems with monsters, so they might have kept some flamethrowers handy.
Break glass in case of undead sorcerer.
Exactly.
And there's our Intrepid with the backdrop.
Just had some cool backdrops when they did stuff like that.
but
yeah.
But I think that same backdrop with the sun and the beams coming out from behind the cloud was used behind the Baron at one point too.
Could be.
But
yeah. So that was okay. So it's not uncommon to have a rear projection screen with, say, moving street scenes or something when someone's in a car in a conventional studio movie. But in this movie, they used many shots where either a car or just people standing there or something were in front of a backdrop that was clearly like a projected slide or something. You know, like Daphne noticed the observatory. You see the car pull up in front of the observatory, and it's not actually in front of an observatory. It's in front of a screen that has a slide
like
projector
a mile away from
the observatory. So that's one way to shoot in a studio without having to go to all these places. Now, I will say that the castle seemed quite an interesting environment. You know, other sets like, say, the Inquisition set, or when they're outside for the burning of the Baron, they kind of show their budget. You know, like if you notice in that scene where they're outside and they're the trees and they're burning, you can actually see cables that are holding the branches up. So they didn't have like a lot of support for those trees on the set, on the stage set. So they just supported them by wires overhead. So it's one of these examples of how they could make a movie that was big on the script, on the page, without money, because obviously they didn't have a lot of money. Right. I'm also thinking from the looks of it that the big tube that was the telescope, assuming it wasn't real telescope, it kind of looked to me like sonotube, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. The eyepiece looked like a suction cup they had dangling on there. It did not look like it.
Yeah.
Sorry. I forgot what I was going to say. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, lucked out that time, Chad. Oh well. I know. Oh, the building. This big building, the castle, that looked familiar to me. Like, and I was wondering if maybe it wasn't something from that we'd seen in maybe Macario or something like that. You know, there's some of that is shot in some grand hall type areas, which was roughly in the same time period.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have to say that those, you know, Gothic vaults and columns and things, the ceilings, it really looked like it was either a real place or like it came from some other movie or something, because this didn't seem like a movie that had the kind of money it would take to build a set that looked that good. Yeah. And by the way, what we have behind me here is actually the Palace of the Inquisition in Mexico, which they now have is the Palace of Medicine in Mexico. But this is actually one of the places in Mexico City where they would have had inquisitions and imprisoned people for the rest of their lives and tortured them and burned them, that kind of thing. So, I just remembered something else. You remember the title sequence where there were these kind of creepy etchings of witches and black masses and things like that. Do you know who the artist was who did those? Okay, Goya, Francisco Goya.
Okay,
the famous Spanish artist. Yeah, he used like techniques like the old masters, classical art, but his subject matter was quite revolutionary at the time. And he lived in the late 1700s, early 1800s. So this was at the time that the Spanish Inquisition was still going on. And so he depicted things like war when Napoleon was invading Spain, and rape, and Saturn devouring the sun, all kinds of horrific things, all kinds of horrific things. And so the imagery we're seeing at the very beginning has a real classy look, I think, because he was.
I got to look at that again.
He did really fine etchings. Yeah,
it was very grotesque and very very. It was just something that was a different level than this movie. I remember that thinking afterwards, like, wow, where did they get the images for that? It's interesting to hear that it was Goya. That's Goya. Really cool. Yeah.
I got to look at that again, because I end up like reading all the credits is what I was doing.
Yeah, they're really grotesque. They're really intense images.
Oh yeah. He was really into that kind of thing. So the horrors of society, and he eventually he got really pessimistic about the state of humanity and how people treated each other, because he'd seen wars and all kinds of just horrible ways that people treated one another, and so he put a lot of social commentary in his work. I think it's a little odd that he had all these images of witchcraft and such, and like there's a painting of a witch's Sabbath with a big goat demon god in the middle of it, and that's the kind of imagery that would play right into the hands of the Inquisition. And yet he was very upset with the inquisitors and that whole Inquisition thing. He was not a fan of those people, so it's interesting that he would depict the very kinds of things that they would be getting out of people confessing under torture. But he was not real expressive about what his paintings meant. He just made the etchings and paintings that he felt compelled to do, aside from those that were commissioned portraits and things like that. Anyhow, right. Interesting character.
That does remind me of, there was I was kind of surprised when there was the scene with the historian, and he was going over his research with the Baron, and he said there was some line about how how kind of uncomfortable or how strange it is to go over things that the Inquisition did. And I just thought that was an interesting kind of comment to have, just this one sentence in there. I was waiting to see if they would come back to it, but I just thought that was interesting, that just one little comment by the historian.
Right.
Well, it's nice to see that not everybody thought that was good to be doing the things they were doing in those days.
So this is just pulled this up, and this kind of stuck out to me based on this film. That's a Goya painting.
Oh, okay.
Vision Phantasmal. Anyway. And that's like one of the good ones, or one of the one of the nicer ones.
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's like
one of the less
thing
intense
holding
and
a person biting its head off kind of thing.
Yeah.
That is kind of surprising. So yeah, okay. So anything you haven't said that you want to say about this? Quickly, I always think of something when I say that. So there was this. Did you guys have a section in this movie that was not dubbed?
Yes.
Yes.
And not subtitled in any way.
Yeah.
And that same thing happened on that Santa and Blue Demon versus Dracula and the Wolfman. There was a little piece in there that wasn't translated. Like,
yeah, there was just a short bit where they're reading a newspaper and they're talking in Spanish, and the subtitle just said foreign language.
Yeah.
I just don't know what they're saying. And I thought, what, did I push the wrong button or something? What happened here? But then as soon as that scene's over, they're back to speaking in the dubbed English. I think we can probably thank K. Gordon Murray and his dubbing experts for that kind of a mistake. Because I can't imagine that was intentional.
I bet really important stuff was discussed in that scene.
Everything we have questions about.
Exactly.
Oh, hey,
why he turned into the goat guy. And all
there's no mention of a comet coming down anywhere. Okay, so I said my last comment. What's anybody else? This was great fun. I think
it was.
I was laughing. I was about falling out of my chair just during the reading of this sentence. Just like they just went on and on and on.
They went on forever. That's one way to make a feature-length movie when you don't have much of a script. You just keep going on and on. Yeah,
but yeah, it's a fun film.
Yes,
I liked it.
I think it's an interesting blend of quality and problems because I think that, you know, whoever was in charge of the lighting did a pretty nice job, considering they must have been working under a very tight deadline to shoot all this in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And, you know, and the sets were minimal, to say the most. You know, sometimes there'd just be like a blank backdrop and like a bush, and then your character would walk through the scene, and it's like there's not really a sky, there's not like a landscape, it's just a blank canvas with a tree in front of it or something. You know, so there are cases where there were serious limitations, but you know, it was competently lit. The music sounded good to me. I don't know if it was canned music or if it was original, but it really had that kind of old school Universal sort of sound to it.
I was good at the music.
You know, I think what this reminds me of more than anything else is, say, the PRC or Monogram Poverty Row horror movies that were made in the 40s. You know, not Universal, but these other studios that would, you know, like they're going for a few days and, you know, throw something together. It's a movie, but a very low budget movie. You'll be struggling with the sense of time and it could have that feel to me. And yet, you know, this is 1962, not 1940s. So it kind of seems like a throwback to that era. There's not, you know, there's not that much that screams to me the modern age, except, you know, when they're in 62. You can see the bars and the music and, you know, those things they're of the period. But it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have a real modern feel in terms of the filmmaking technique or anything like that. But it's just interesting to me that it does have a classic feel to it in some respects, but there's this the budgetary problems, and I'm sure the fact that there weren't a lot of really accomplished technicians at the time who could actually, say, make a creature that was really believable and amazing. But I will give them credit, they didn't, you know, they didn't pull punches. I mean, they made a monster that's a real monster. It's an original creature, it's an original idea, and it's a very unusual thing. And once you've seen it, you can't forget it as much as you try.
The composer is Gustavo Cesar Carrion, and I know I saw something about the special effects makeup. just in case. I didn't translate. Let's see. Well, Rosa Guerrero was makeup artist, but that is probably special effects. Juan Munoz Ravillo, special effects. So I don't know exactly what that pertains to. We've talked about that before, about the sort of catch-all terms there.
Yeah, it could just be the fire effects, but who knows?
But so in terms of the monster, it just felt like every other Santo and Blue Demon fight some monster from somewhere. That's all. I mean, that's what I got out of that. But the story is far more serious and far more, you know, the creepy stuff. You know, the silhouette creeping into her bedroom, the brains in the bowl, and him eating out of it. I'm like thinking, ooh, it's like a scene from Hannibal or something. You know?
I know. I did go, ew, gross, when he was eating it.
Yeah, I mean, the things that
when he really creeped up on the women, you know, it was just so it was much more serious than most of those, right? Those are sort of funny.
I think it was a little too well lit. If he was a little darker and more shadows thrown in, I'd hate to run across this guy in that dark. I'm not going to stop and see where the seams in his mask are. I'm out of there. He is creepy looking. It's a creepy looking.
You show him backlit in a dark alley and you're running the other way.
Right?
Yeah. It was freaky.
All right. The way he was lit, you could see every little blemish. And
well, appreciate you picking us, Ralph. And I think that's it for the Brainiac.
Sure is.
But we do have some feedback. If we have some little bit of time here, let's kick these out. We got a bunch for some. Oh, I know why. Because I didn't read feedback when we did the Brides of Dracula. So, anybody?
That movie's a hard act to follow. Gotta say.
Well, this is sort of it's sort of the yin and the yang of early '60s movies.
Right about the same time period.
Yeah. Well, the first one, you know, we do get some stuff from older ones. So we got a comment on episode 83, The Incredible Shrinking Man, from a person whose handle is Chickadee Acres.
Hiya, Chickadee.
My little
Chickadee.
Okay. Gosh, I must have been about 8 to 9 years old in the 60s watching this on Friday night on Horror House. I was intrigued by the props used on an extreme scale. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of my favorite. This is a list of like a half a dozen movies I saw when I was around 11 or 12 that just stuck with me. Anyway. And then Mikey Z gives us some more suggestions. We haven't done the last bunch, Mike. I'm just
Lots
kidding.
of good suggestions.
I copy them over to our spreadsheet. So 1920, John Barrymore silent version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We've talked about that.
Yeah,
Svengali from 1931. Also John Barrymore. And then a couple of Cheneys, The Alligator People, 1959.
Nice.
And The Indestructible Man, 1956. Both.
I love that one.
Yeah. And then La Casa del Terror, again, in his last feature film appearance as the Wolfman and the Mummy. Junior again, Lon Chaney. Okay. Last feature film appearance as the Wolfman and the Mummy. Wow. Okay. Must be like the Mexican version of the House of Dracula or House of Frankenstein or something, where they all, I don't know. You know, and I'm gonna throw this out there. I really, really, really wish I'd looking up the credits for a lot of these actors and directors, and there's a ton of movies. Some of them you can tell are sort of, you know, on a par with this in terms of budget, but other ones that I think might have been pretty good and pretty decent horror movies. I wish there was like a Mexican film streaming channel that had stuff from the 50s and the 60s. Some of that stuff is just really hard to find. And when you find them, I would rather find ones that were subtitled than dubbed, but whatever, I'll take whatever. And a lot of times I can find them, on YouTube or archive.org, but they're Spanish and they're subtitled Spanish. They're for a Spanish audience. So
there are a number of those Mexican movies that have never been translated into English with dubbing or subtitles, either one. So that's problematic for us who do not speak Spanish.
Okay. If anybody knows of anything like that, let me know, or let us know, I should say. So I don't know. Are you at the place where the Chad? You want to read this one from Mikey Z about Most Dangerous Game?
Sure. I rewatched the film The Most Dangerous Game the other day. I hadn't seen it in a while, and it was a lot better and a lot more violent than I remembered. I was watching the recently colorized version released by Legend Films from 2008, which brought about a different viewing experience for me. The gorgeous Fay Wray in her natural brunette coif, I think looks like better here than in King Kong. Joel McCrea was competent as the hero. I think he was still learning his leading man role in film that he would better attain a few years later. Too bad he didn't want to be Jack Driscoll in King Kong. I think he would have brought more of the romance element to the fore in the film. But the piece de resistance for me was Leslie Banks as Count Zaroff. He overacts just enough to convey the psychotic predatory hunter with enough charm and droll humor to maybe cheer for him. Well, maybe not. Great pre-King Kong sets. The traveling camera as the prey are running through the jungle was a great touch. A fast-paced, great actioner from the early sound days. Some of the images in the trophy room call to mind Silence of the Lambs nearly 6 decades later. A fun watch with some good performances and great musical score by Max Steiner. Another great podcast. Happy Halloween, Grue-Crew. Love you guys. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, appreciate it, Mike. Yeah, I like that movie. Whitney.
Oh, you flatter me.
Daphne.
Good night, everyone.
I need some protein. Well, at least it was somebody else on the podcast, Roberta.
What a maroon.
All right. Matango, episode 135.
Evil genius, Matango. Blame It on Iowa, the long-awaited sequel to Blame It on Rio.
I think I said I never saw this because they never came to Iowa or something.
We blame everything on Iowa.
I am blaming a lot of stuff on Iowa.
In regards to seriousness versus pulp sci-fi, I could see either one as desirable. Matango is a deep movie which could be appreciated on a deeper level. But I would love to an Attack of the Mushroom People with a vague reference to space radiation, people in bad mushroom costumes rampaging through the countryside. That version could have worked too for me.
Okie dokie. Ralph, you see the feedback there?
Oh, where would I find it? I don't know. I don't see it.
Oh, that's all right. That's way down at the bottom. But so here's one from Lone Wolf. Chad. About
Lone Wolf says, I can't believe I overlooked this. I'll add this to my watch list. I listened to this episode and then listened to an old episode from the Godzilla Pod War Hour podcast about this film. And from what I've heard overall, it's basically Gilligan's Island if it was made by a horror director. In fact, the TV show came not long after this, which is insane. There's an old Nintendo game called Godzilla Monster of Monsters, which featured Matango as one of the enemies. I remember that.
That's cool.
I've seen the actors in other kaiju films, and they're incredible to say the least. Kumi Mizuno is basically Japanese Carolyn Monroe. Kenji Sahara is one of the coolest sounding names ever. Yeah, it is. Ishiro Honda was at the top of his game in the 60s. Eiji Tsuburaya was the Ray Harryhausen of the Far East who went from Godzilla to Ultraman. I think I'll watch this movie while eating my favorite pizza, pepperoni with mushrooms. By the way, sorry for my lack of comments. I miss you guys. Miss you too, Loney. That's why they call him Lone Wolf.
Yes, yes. And oh, this is good. One for 136, The Return of Dracula from Mona Lisa.
It's pronounced Dracula.
Yeah, Dracula.
Come on.
Go ahead, Daphne. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. This is from Mona Lisa. Another great review. Thank you to Chad, Daphne, Dave, and Jeff. I appreciate the time you all take to do these videos and the podcast. It feels like hanging out with friends. That's nice. I'm going to watch The Return of Dracula after watching your review. It sounds like a fun watch, and I might just go crazy and watch The Flame Barrier tomorrow.
I want to hear about it. Hear what you thought of The Flame Barrier if you watch that.
Phoebius 333, you dorks. It was Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. Edit. I see Jeff eventually remembered.
I never said I wasn't a dork.
No.
We figured it out.
Yes. Eventually.
And go ahead with the next one.
Bill Gabriel.
Who?
Shadow of a Doubt, Bill Gabriel.
Who's that?
Shadow of a Doubt meets Dracula. This was another creature feature staple.
No kidding, Bill.
They never showed that stuff around here. Bill.
Do you want me to go some more? Yeah, I was wondering where Bill has been too.
I didn't.
Scott Wells.
My turn? Whose turn is it?
Sure.
Of course it's my turn. I didn't hear you read one lately.
I'll read one, but I talked the whole time.
You sure did. I'll go. Scott Wells says, this film is criminally unknown and underrated. Lederer actually is one of my favorite versions of Dracula and seems to be the first to treat the vampire as a sort of antichrist figure, a concept that later Hammer films tried to introduce with somewhat less finesse. There's a lot of subtext in this film, and I've been trying to unpack it over multiple viewings over the last few months. The entire opening scene in that cemetery is shot like a film noir of professional assassins arriving to take out their target. It does. It was a really good opening scene. Yeah. There's a very strong film noir feel to it, and that scene and a lot of the same overtones and themes as Orson Welles' The Stranger. I really love this film and wish I could have been part of the discussion, but then it would have gone on for hours. Some pieces of trivia regarding this: pay attention to the close-ups of Norma Eberhardt in the film, and you'll notice that she actually has two different colored eyes, blue and brown. And this is visible even in the black and white film. This condition is called complete heterochromia and was what brought her initial attention as a model and actress. I just found that interesting.
Well, I think we had that in the, in the notes, but it just, it didn't come up while we were talking. Basically. But thanks, appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the staking scene was not colored in the television release of this film due to the fact that the default televisions of the time were black and white. It was restored to color later. And finally, the filmmakers attempted another William Castle-like gimmick on this film. Apart from the colored blood, they initially tried offering life insurance for anyone who died while watching it. However, this was a bit too much for William Castle, who then sued them, and that gimmick was swiftly dropped. Plus, a lot of spouses who were trying to get rid of their mate, their partners, were taking advantage of this. Yeah, let's go to a movie. Thanks for covering this, folks. It's a favorite.
That was a really good movie. I really enjoyed watching that movie.
Yeah.
It was.
Thank you, Scott.
It was good.
Yeah.
And I still have to go watch the silent film you told us about that has Francis Lederer in it.
Pandora's Box.
Yes.
Gosh, that's a good movie. Yeah. Yeah, please do. Louise Brooks.
Is it Lederer or is it Lederier?
I think it's Lederier.
Okay. Hope it doesn't look anything like the Brainiac's hand.
Yes, it's butt pants. Or butt
second
hands.
cousin. Episode 137, The Brides of Dracula, also from Thievius 333. Any film with the man Peter Cushing.
Huh?
I should have never done it. Any film with the man Peter Cushing is, of course, worth a gander. But for me, the greatest films, with few exceptions, in the Hammer Library all have the word Frankenstein in the title. Can't argue with this. Yeah, this one's right up there, though. This one's right up there. But appreciate it, Thievius. That's a new commenter. Although, you guys get a bunch of emails about how you can do new handles on YouTube. Oh, I did. I didn't, but
you mean we could all be getting this? Could be Mikey Z in disguise on the rest of these comments.
Yeah, or Jerry Chandler, or
it's Gary Seizure or whatever you call him.
Gary Seizure.
Snyder.
Gary Snyder. We didn't get one from Gary this time.
All right. Well, that's it for the feedback, guys. Appreciate all the comments, and please leave comments on the YouTube channel or send them to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com. We do have a bunch more on the Brides of Dracula. We got quite a lengthy discussion on one of our social media pages, so I'm going to pull some of those for next time.
All right, cool.
At any rate, that's it for this episode, but every 2 weeks we're going to do another episode focusing on a specific film between 1920 and 1969, and next up is one chosen by Daphne.
Deadly Bees.
Yes.
I want to watch a creature feature, Deadly Bees.
AKA The Swarm.
Yes.
Well, this one's from 1966. Bees, so, yeah. This is an Amicus production directed by
Freddie Francis.
Yo.
Not as good as Girly, but probably up there.
No.
You're not getting off for that episode, Chad.
If it's not as good as that, I'm not going to watch.
All right. Ralph, thank you so much.
Yay!
Yeah, thanks,
My pleasure. It was a blast.
Thank you joining our unorganized efforts here.
I enjoyed introducing you to a film you hadn't seen yet.
Yeah.
Well,
so much fun.
You know how it is. You're scrolling through films and you see this over and over and over, and I keep thinking, "Oh, I got to watch that sometime." But quite frankly, that drawing did not entice me to watch this film.
What?
Hairy sweatpants butt.
But you can't judge a book by its cover, or a movie by its poster, or its taglines.
Or its taglines, exactly.
Especially taglines.
All right. Well,
it was bizarre.
It was
strange, but I liked it.
Oh, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Tongue. We had God, there was just everything. It had everything. We had comments, we had tongue action, we had brain sucking,
killing,
bathtub handstands.
That's a new version of a kill that I haven't seen before.
You'll never see Jason doing stuff like that.
Nah.
All right.
I also like watching the movies that Riff Tracks and MST3K have done, and like just watching it on its own sometimes is fun.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I haven't seen that many of those. Not that I don't really have a good reason, other than I've just never watched them. That's it, folks. Catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie of the classic era, as only decades of horror can do it. Say good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.